Hello everyone, my name is Jane and welcome to my easy English book recommendations. So today I'm going to recommend easy English books to read if English isn't your first language. And basically I made a video like this a few months ago and I really want already for a while to make an updated version of this video with more new recommendations. And basically English isn't my native language, and I remember that when I started reading English, at the start it was really hard to me and I felt pretty clueless because I wasn't sure which books would be easier for me to read. And I'm excited to make today this video because I really want to help more people that are struggling like I struggled only when I started to read in English. I feel like starting to read in a different language is really hard. Like you're reading a whole book not in your native language. It's hard and it takes time, and it was really a struggle to me in the beginning because I read so slow and it was so hard for me to read. But I really feel like I have a good amount of recommendations today that I really hope that they will be helpful for you. And just in general, I have also some tips for you if you are starting to read in English. So yes, I really hope that this whole video will be helpful for you, and I will link also my previous video. There is a lot of really good recommendations also there, so you also can check it out. But yes, basically I will start with some quick tips and then I will go to the recommendations. I have a lot of them. I have a lot of different genres. Also in general, contemporaries are usually the easiest way to read something in English because usually in contemporary the language is more easy. But yes, I just have different genres and different type of books, and I'm just really excited to share everything. So let's start firstly with the tips. The first tip, and the most important in my opinion, is to read what you love to read. If you're already reading in your native language and you just want to read more things in English, don't read books that don't look interesting to you just because other people say that it's really easy to read them in English. I feel like in general, if you're reading a book that you don't like, you won't enjoy it and you won't read it until the end, or you will just struggle reading it. So if you're trying to read in a different language, you need a book that is really interesting to you. So also when it's hard for you to read in this language and when it takes more time, you will still want to continue reading this book because this book is interesting to you. So for me, it's the most important. Keep reading the things that you love to read, also in a different language. And the second tip is that I do think that you should start with more shorter books. Yes, if you love reading only long books, go for it. Again, read what you love. But for me, when I started reading English, it was really hard for me because I'm reading so much more quickly in my native language. And when I started reading in English, I read so slow and I wasn't used to this pace. So I felt so frustrated that it takes me so much time to finish each book. So in general, I would suggest starting with more shorter books. And also if you start a book and you don't enjoy it, just DNF it. Reading not in your native language is already a really big struggle and something that you need to get through. So at least what you are reading is supposed to be interesting enough for you and short enough for you so you won't get frustrated from reading in a different language, because in the end it's supposed to be fun. And the last tip is a tip that I think I talked about it also in my previous video, but basically if you like, you don't have to do it. If you like reading books, I would suggest rereading some of your favorites in English and not in your native language, because you already know the book, you already know what is happening, so it's much easier to read something in a different language because you already read it. But again, only if you love reading books, because I personally don't like it, so for me it will be hard to read a book that I already read. But yes, in general, those were just some really quick tips. But yes, we are here today mainly for the books, so I think that let's start with the books, and I'm going to talk about the books in genres. Basically, most of the recommendations are romance contemporaries, because again, contemporary in general is easier to read than other genres, but not everyone loves romances or contemporaries. So I do have some different genres and I will start with them. And I'm going to start firstly with a fantasy, because fantasies in general are usually harder to read because there is a lot of world building. This fantasy is so easy, like the language there is so easy to understand. It's also a very quick read, which is perfect. And this is The Duffer of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller, and this is basically a first book in a duology. I have here also the second book, Daughter of the Siren Queen, and I did read both of them and I enjoyed this duology. It was just really fun and really quick. And like you can guess, we're following the daughter of the Pirate King, and basically the main character is getting captured by their enemies, but it was on purpose. She's basically acting herself to get something from their ship, and just in general it was a really fun book. It's also very popular, and I feel like it's a very fun YA fantasy. So if you love YA fantasy, honestly, I feel like this is the best option. Like, I recommended some fantasy books in the previous video, but this one is definitely the most easy English fantasy that I think that I ever read. The language here was just so easy to understand, and the two books are also very fast paced and also very short, so I feel like it's just a really good book to read if you are trying to start reading in English. So if you are a fantasy reader, I would definitely recommend it because it was really easy and fun to read. Now I have two thrillers, and in general also thrillers are usually contemporary thrillers, so also thrillers can be a very good option to read. But the first thriller is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Now this is a very popular, it's a YA thriller, like something like this, and we are following a teenager that suddenly gets an inheritance from someone really rich that she doesn't even know, and also the family of this rich man that died don't know why this girl just got a lot of money from him. So she's basically moving to the house of this rich man that died, and it's also a romance because there is a lot of guys in this house, and honestly I personally didn't really like it, but I'm feeling so confident recommending it because it's a very loved book. It's so hyped up, a lot of people love it, and my opinion is very unpopular opinion, so I do think that if you love thrillers, especially YA thrillers, and if this story sounds interesting to you, I do think that you will probably enjoy it. And the reason that I'm recommending it is because the English here is really easy, and also the chapters are super short, like max 3-4 pages for a chapter, so I feel like it's very easy and quick to get through this book. You can read one chapter and not feel like it's too much, and you can take a lot of breaks if you need, because again, it's hard to read something not in your native language. So I feel like it's just in general a very good book, and again, also very popular one, and a lot of people love it. So I do think that there is high chances also for you to love it, and just in general, it's a very good book if you're starting to read something in English for the first time, and I think it was really easy to read. And the second thriller is an adult thriller and not YA one, and this is Verity by Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover books in general are perfect if you want to start reading in English. I talked about some of them in the previous video, so I will recommend new ones for this one, but just in general, check all of her books. They are amazing. I love her writing so much, and Verity is basically her first thriller romance, and I loved it so much. Like, I honestly think that this is a masterpiece. It's one of my most favorite books that she released, and we are following a woman. This woman is an author. She writes a lot, but she don't really have money. She didn't sell a lot of stuff recently, and she gets an opportunity to keep writing a very famous book series because the original author of the series got into an accident and she can't keep writing by herself anymore. So the main character basically goes to the house of the previous author that got to the accident to get more info about the series and where the original author planned the series to go. But then she meets the husband of the author that got into the accident, and it's very thrilling. It's heavy also on the romance and also on the thriller side, and I just loved it so much. I feel like it's definitely one of the best books that Colleen Hoover wrote, in my opinion, and I just really enjoyed it. And like I said, the whole language is so easy to understand. Please be aware that this is an adult romance. It's also steamy, so just for your information, but I just really loved it. Like, it's one of my most favorite books, and the language is so easy in general. Colleen Hoover language is really easy to understand. Her books are perfect if you want to start reading in English. And before we will get to all the romances, I have another contemporary to recommend. It's also a romance, but it's mainly a cozy mystery, and this is Dial A for Aunties by Jess Q. Santano. And basically this book is just so funny. So if you love reading funny books and just books that are more comedy and more fun, I would really recommend this one. I feel like the language here was so easy, and in general the plot of the book was really fast paced. And again, I think the short books are the best way to start if you are starting to read not in your native language, because it's less pressure and not as intimidating as other books. Basically here we are following a woman that works with her family in the wedding business, but in the beginning of the story she gets to the situation that she went to a date with a guy, but then this guy died in a car crash or something like this. And this book is very funny and very not logical, but in a good way. So the main character needs to hide this body. Just there is a lot of stuff that happened to get to the situation, and basically this is just a book about a wedding that something really bad goes there and they need to hide this body from everyone. So it just was a really funny book. It's not the most logical one, but this is the whole point in this book, and I feel like this book is just really different from the other books that I recommended so far and that I will recommend, because this is the most funny one. So if you are those kind of readers that just love to read books to make you laugh, just books that are really funny and really quirky, I really think that this book will be perfect for it, especially because the English here is so easy, and obviously I would really recommend it. And yes, now we go to the romance recommendations. I have also YA romances, also adult romances, just a lot of romances because I love romances, and again I feel like romances are great to read in English because they are usually with more easy language. And before we will get, I just want to mention that I also think that graphic novels are a really good option to read if you're starting to read in English. For me, it made my whole English experience so much more easier because you're reading something, but it's also a lot of illustrations and not only text. And you can read it really quickly and just feel really motivated after it. I have a full video about my most favorite graphic novels, so I will link it down below. And I think that you should also check it out if you love graphic novels or mangas, because those are a great option to read in English to make you more familiar with the language. But yes, now we're getting to the romances, and I'm really excited to share my romances with you. And the first romance is The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood. And this book is so hyped up, it's so popular. It's one of the most popular romance books that were released in 2021, and I have to recommend it because it's also super popular and it's also super easy to read. I don't think it was the shortest romance, but it was so quick to read, and the language there was just so easy. It is a geeky romance, so there is a lot of talks about science, but I feel like also with the talks about science, this book was still really easy to read with really easy language. And you might already heard about this book, so because of it I really want to mention it, because if this book is already on your TBR, read it because it's perfect to start reading it in a different language. It was just such a sweet romance book and I really enjoyed it, and very easy English. Now I have two YA romances, so if you love reading YA, if you are younger and you just don't want reading more adult romances, I feel like those two are really great YAs. The first one is The Lucky List by Rachel Lippincott, and this was a really good coming-of-age story for basically following a teenager that her mother passed away not a long time ago, and since then it was really hard for her in life. Also, she and her father aren't really getting along anymore, and also she doesn't really have friends anymore because everyone just abandoned her in her most hard time of her life. And this book was very emotional, but at the same time very hopeful and very motivating, because although everything that happened to her, she learned how to deal with everything. It's also a female romance, so there is a very good representation here, and I feel like this is one of the best coming of age stories that I read in a while. I feel like it was just really funny and it was really easy to connect to the characters, and the writing was so easy to understand. It's such easy and quick contemporary to read. So if you love YA romances, YA contemporaries, just coming of age stories in general, I feel like this is a very good book. And yes, the language here is so easy to read, so I will definitely recommend starting with this one. And the second YA romance is Without Merit by Colleen Hoover. Another Colleen Hoover book, I'm sorry, but like I said, her books are so good to read if you're starting to read in English, and I really love this YA romance. It's not a very hyped up book from her, but I feel like it was so good and very quirky and weird. It has trigger warnings for depression and maybe more stuff, so please check the trigger warnings out, but I just feel like it was such a good Colleen Hoover book. We are following a teenager that doesn't get along with her family, a teenager that just feels alone about everything. This book has such an important message, and I feel like it dealt with the depression of the main character so well. It's also a romance. I really loved the love interest. This book is just so good and not popular enough. It is a more hard YA, but if you love the stuff, it will be a really good book to read because Colleen Hoover language is just so easy to understand, and I really loved it, so I would definitely recommend it. Now the next book is an adult romance, and this is also from an author that I recommended in the previous video, and this is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. I really love Christina Lauren books, and their writing is so easy to understand. Like, all of their books are just so perfect to read if you're starting to read in English. So in general, check all of their books out because all of them can be really fitting for you if you're wanting easy English books to read. But this specific book is so quick, it's very short and very fast paced and just very wholesome. We are following Josh and Hazel, and basically both of them are starting to be friends, and there is a connection to them, and they just don't accept the fact that they have a crush on each other. So they are basically helping each other to find a significant other, and they really don't get that the other side likes them too. And it's just a really cute book. I did read a lot of miscommunication books, and I feel like this one was done really well. I feel like a lot of miscommunication books makes me really angry really easily because so many things can be solved if the characters will only speak between each other but I feel like this book didn't make me angry. Everything was so logical and so healthy and just so realistic, and it didn't make me angry. I feel like the communication between of them was good throughout all the book, although it took a lot of time for them to be together. But this book just was so quirky and wholesome and a really fun time, and Christina Lauren books in general are great if you're starting to read in English, and I feel like this one is a really, really good one. And the last book is another adult romance, but this is a more dark romance. It's very, very smutty. This romance is for the readers that love to read dark romance or just more hardcore romances books. And this is Both They Gore by Penelope Douglas. Now, if you are not new to my channel, you know that since I read this book, I can't stop talking about it. I loved it so much. It was my most favorite romance that I read in 2021. It was just so good, and it is pretty dark, but not as much. I feel like the situation was pretty dark because the main character of the story is a 19-year-old teenager that has a boyfriend, and she is working and just trying to live because she don't have almost any money. And then she is meeting an old man that is older from her in 20 years, and they are getting really good together until she's finding out that this man is the father of her boyfriend. So this is basically the boyfriend's dad trope. And again, the trope is pretty dark. Like, this is definitely the most dark book on this recommendations list. I just really want to recommend a book for every type of reader. So if you love those kind of books, this will be perfect. And I feel like in general, this book wasn't as dark as it seems. Everything here was so healthy and also so realistic, because I feel like a lot of romance books are so obviously not realistic and so obviously a book and something that probably won't happen in real life. But here, everything was just so healthy and so realistic, and their relationship was just really good, and I feel like all the characters dealt with everything so well. So this book was just so smart and so mature, and I just loved it so much. And Penelope Douglas writing is very, very easy to understand. I read also Punk 57. I also recommend this one if you are looking to read it, because the language there is also easy, but horror books in general, the ones that I read, are really easy language. So if you those kind of readers that really love dark romances, Penelope Douglas is definitely the best way to start, because her language is really easy to understand, and her writing will definitely make you want to continue the book, which is the most important thing. And yes, this was my easy English recommendations video. I'm so happy that I made the updated version to the previous video. Just really wanted to recommend more books, and especially just help people that are starting to read in English for the first time, because again, also for me, it was really, really hard in the beginning. It was so frustrated for me, and just took me so much time. So I really hope that this video was helpful for you in your journey in starting reading in English. And yes, I really hope that you will enjoy all of those books, and I hope that the variety of different genres and different types of books was big enough for you to find something that you would want to read. And yes, I really hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone!